What's up, Degenerate Nation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. This is the college football betting kickoff episode. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as always, from here until the end of the season, my fellow BBOC co-host, Collin Wilson. This is year 9. Some of you have been with us since Degen and Juice, which was a horribly produced podcast when we first started back in the summer of 2017. We're in much better shape with our beloved producer, Matt Mitchell. But it's good to be back. Week 9. Collin, how goes it?
You don't miss recording 3 hours and then that producer that we hired be like, oh, the audio's fried. You're just going to have to do it over again. And here we are, 4 o'clock in the morning doing it again. That was a long time ago. I've said this every single year. I will say it again. This is the most joyous thing I've ever done in my life. This is
besides having kids.
Besides, yeah. Apologies to the kids there, but this is professionally one of the best things I've ever done in my life. It is a joy to do this every year. I feel lucky that you and I get to chop this up half the year and talk about my favorite sport in the world. And I am just grateful that we get to do this again, a 9th season. I mean, somebody told me the other day this summer, like if a podcast gets past 10 episodes, like you're in the top 5% of even podcasts existing. Like you and I are going on 9 years doing this. I count my blessings, and I will continue to bring it weekly to make sure I keep you in check, because this LSU shit that you've got going on before I don't know what I was listening to. Stuck, you cut a podcast. I heard all this Brian Kelly love. I almost fell out of my chair. So I'm super excited to be back.
We'll get to some LSU Clemson banter in a bit. We'll also talk some coaching, head coaching hires, coordinators, offensive, defenses, the ones that we like, don't like. We'll touch on some quarterback battles, and then we'll briefly just touch on high level every single league, maybe give a thought or two, maybe, hey, I like this win total, I like this future. But we're not going to share too much because we have by the way, this episode will be in 2 parts. So this will be split up, I don't know, probably 40 minutes each part or so. And then we're going to have, on Monday, we'll have a 3rd kickoff episode, which is the Group of 5 edition, which will be with Calabrese and our newest edition, who we're so excited to have, Josh Nunn, a.k.a. Step on a Duck. Make sure you follow him in the app. Always crushes win totals. Just search Duck on the Action Network app. And then soon thereafter, we'll have our annual conference-by-conference betting previews, go through every single team in college football. Thursday, July 31st will be the kickoff for that. We'll start with the Sun Belt. Week of August 4th, we'll cover the rest of G5. It'll be a mix of Collin, myself, Duck, Calabrese, and then the week of August 11th, we'll hit all of the Power 4 conferences. Collin and I will handle those. Probably do an SEC in 2 parts, Big Ten in 2 parts. Just a lot of these conferences keep getting bigger. A lot.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
How not excited are you about us doing the Big 12 podcast? I mean, literally like 1 through 6. I don't even know. Like, do we even make a script? Do we just show up and go through all 16 and talk about, can this team win it or finish in the cellar? That conference.
The Big 12 is going to be it's the most exciting conference from top to bottom. So for what it's worth, all the episodes will be out by week 0. But yeah, the Big 12, I mean, I went through an exercise. So obviously I have all my projections, and then you would spit out your numeric projected win totals. But I took the league, the schedules, and I went through based on matchups, my own gut, situations, and I just marked every game, how I think it plays out, the season plays out. I ended up with a 6-way tie for first. And then, which is odd. It just feels right. So then I was like, I got to figure out who wins this. I was going through the tiebreakers. I'm like, I got to stop. I can't go through Big 12 tiebreakers in June on a fake. I was trying to figure out like common opponent. Like, it helps to actually have a harder schedule if you end up tied with. So it's going to be lovely. And speaking of the Big 12, I'm looking forward to this game. I am not looking forward to the fact that this is the first game in Ireland between Kansas State and Iowa State. Like, that is a huge game. We're talking about the Big 12, how much parity that could decide the conference. Like, who goes to the Big 12 title game? It could decide a playoff spot. I'm not a fan of that, like being the first game in Ireland, but it'll I'm excited to have that big of a game. And speaking of which, week 0, very good chance, like 95% chance, Action's going to have a little get together in Chicago for Saturday, week 0, maybe at Joe's for some of you who were at our last one, which is awesome, in March. Nothing crazy, but if you want to get together, I think Colin and I are going to be there. There's a chance Kerner, Raybon will as well. Have some drinks, bet on some week 0 games, watch some college football, celebrate college football being back. More info in the next week or two. We'll have stuff on Twitter. But if you're interested in that, if you're in the Chicago area, just mark your calendars. Don't make any plans if you want to come check us out. So stay tuned for more info there. All right, let's dive right into it. I guess we'll start high level. I think that one of the biggest storylines the college football playoff, it expanded. It's probably going to expand again. My biggest gripe last year was how the buys were decided, and they fixed that. It's in the college football growth, the machine. It's inevitable. Just give me games and I'll bet on them. I'm not going to spend too much time complaining. What I did complain about a lot last year was how everything worked out. Oregon shouldn't have been incentivized to lose the Big Ten championship game, which they still should have. Yes, I'm still salty about my bet, but they should have lost. They would have had an easier path, and maybe the national championship games. But that shouldn't be a thing. So now I think they fixed that, which I was very happy to see. And you still get your automatic bids, but I think that the seeding now, you're not going to have these crazy paths, and I think it was broken last year, and I think that they did fix that.
It gives any thoughts there? Yeah, it gives us better quality, because if you think about what the first round was, right? Every home team covered, and I think every spread nothing was closer than 7. I think Notre Dame, Indiana closed 7, not 6.5. So, maybe we get some better competition with those home games. And then when you look at the next round, when you go to that, then what happened last year? All 4 seeds that had a bye, Boise, Arizona State, Oregon, and Georgia, all lost. So maybe you get better spreads. Maybe you get better competition. I think this is good for the consumer. I think it's good for the gambler that we don't get 14, 17 point spreads, Clemson, Texas type stuff. So I think this overall benefits everybody, but I'm a little nervous, Stuck, that this leans towards more load management, right? An NBA term that I don't want in college football. But if 10-2 gets you to the playoff and you're Georgia heading into Georgia Tech and you're sitting at 10-1, do you need that game? Well, obviously you didn't last year with 8 overtimes. But I don't think load management is going to be a thing, because these kids still need to play, and you don't want to get your quarterbacks out of rhythm. There's just so much that goes into it. But if you've locked up a top 4 seed and you're going into a rivalry game in the last weekend, how big is that rivalry game? Because obviously it didn't mean anything to Ohio State losing to Michigan last year. I'm not saying they didn't try, and I'm not saying they don't want it. And I'm not saying this isn't still college football. But I feel like we're pushing closer to load management.
I think, I agree with you, which I don't like, but I think naturally you have to, if you're a coaching staff, you have to think about it at least, because now to win a national championship game, you might have to win 16 games. Mm-hmm. And what's happened at the top, so what we're kind of moving to with NIL, the portal, is we're, obviously the group of 5 teams, there's some that can keep up. They have like a Memphis with FedEx money, but the group of 5 is going to fall back just naturally. Number one, they're coaches. Anyone that's like a hot coach is going to get poached, and they might go from a head coach to an assistant. But anyone who's like a star player now at a group of 5 school, a lot of them aren't going to stick around, and they're gone the next year, and they're going to get paid. And so just the talent drain, and then the group of 5 has to reach in more and more to D2, D3, FCS. So the group of 5 is just going to continue to fall behind. But it's almost going to start to look like the NFL in a way, where you'll have like your upper echelon, you'll have like 30 teams that are really good, and there's going to be more parity across the top. And then every year you'll have, 8 or 9 teams that can win it all. and that's fluid. It's more fluid than usual. You're probably still going to have your normal players up there, like your Texases and Georgias. But it's going to change based on quarterbacks. That's the difference in the NFL. Like, you're not going to have Mahomes there for 10, 15 years and Allen. The quarterbacks are going to change, and that's kind of what's going to dictate that movement. But it's going to make it a more competitive, expanded playoff, more competitive at the top. But the group of five is falling behind. And what also is getting hurt with these top tier teams is the depth. So one thing that I spend a lot of time on during the regular season is just, if you have a cluster of offensive line injuries or something, right? It can be devastating for some of these top tier teams, even the most elite, because they just don't have as much depth at certain positions as you used to have. You don't have plug and play tackles and guards, and there might be a big drop off. So now you have to play more games to win a national title, and you have less key depth. You might have to start thinking about it, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I think it's just an inevitable kind of outcome of the nature of what we've created in college football.
Yeah. And the player movement's insane still. Like, I mean, I remember we ended last season, I was just convinced we were betting South Alabama to win the Sun Belt because I love Gio Lopez so much. Late in the portal cycle, let's go to North Carolina and play for Bill Belichick. So it's still insane movement. And, you know, the G5 is going to be interesting because we get these Conference USA games in October midweek, and we get the MAC games midweek. And what is your roster like at that point? Are you scrapping everything and doing something different? Like, and you're right, offensive line depth is killer. This is the first offseason I've actually tracked like number of starts, where you rank in FBS, where you rank in your conference, because I think offensive line depth is huge. I ignored what was going on at Oklahoma last year. I completely was heads up, sold in on Oklahoma, missed the win total by a half game. And, you know, their offensive line was a problem from day one. It was 5 brand new starters, and I didn't pay attention to that. And then all their skill positions got hurt. I think you have to pay attention to offensive line depth more than maybe any other position.
Yeah. Gio Lopez, by the way, going from last year at this time, he went 0 of 13 with like 3 picks in the spring game. And now he's starting for North Carolina, coached by Bill Belichick. Just the crazy, it's just college football. It's a crazy world. It's the best soap opera TV series that you can watch on TV. All right, let's talk a little high level with the teams this year. And I mean, I think that the overarching theme is, if you can figure out the quarterbacks, you'll probably figure out who's going to the college football playoff, because a lot of the teams at the top have a lot of quarterback uncertainty. Now, there are teams like even Texas, like everyone just assuming that Arch is going to be elite. There's part of that's his name, part of that is his pedigree, but we still haven't seen a ton from him. The teams where, but you know, you look at Alabama, you look at Georgia, Ohio State. There's a lot of these top teams. There's real questions and uncertainty, not to say they don't have really talented guys, around the quarterback position. A couple of the teams that don't have quarterback uncertainty, there's still questions about, can that guy take that next step? Penn State, they have their guy back, probably a future pro. Allard, there's no question about it. He has to be better in bigger games and bigger spots against better teams, something we've been saying about his coach as well. 2 of the teams that have some of the least amount of uncertainty at quarterback are LSU with Nussmeier and Clemson with Klubnik, which kind of gives them, you know, just a slight advantage with the most important position going into the year. You love Clemson. Mm-hmm. I'm not quite there. I was all about Clemson last year. I thought people were too low on them. I had them to go to the playoff. I had them to win the ACC. By the way, I probably got lucky on both because they needed Syracuse to beat Miami. So I think they're a little overvalued this year. I'll let you talk your below. So this is not a Dabo podcast from my perspective. It sounds like it is going to be from your perspective. Talk to me about your love for the Tigers.
Well, hey, this isn't a DJ Uyunglele podcast anymore, but I'm not sure if it's Dabo. I think we have a new Dabo, right? First off, we're reaching into the portal. We're going to get Edge Will Hout from the portal. I mean, Clemson's going to the portal. What is this? Also, We're not hiring from within and elevating assistants into coordinators. We're going to get Tom Allen as your defensive coordinator, a guy who's been a master defensive coordinator everywhere he's been.
Like that hire. Should help with their run D, which was bad last year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is this the best set of defensive linemen in the nation? I think it's arguable with Edge TJ Parker. Second best offensive line in the nation. If you go out there and look at maybe Phil Steele at some of those rankings, they have 135 combined starts on the offensive line, the 9th highest numbers of experience there. But I said this last year, and I'll keep repeating it. Klubnik's number jump in the analytics has been one of the best rises that has not been talked about. 27-12 big-time throw to turnover-worthy play. 3 seasons now, each year he has cut his turnover-worthy play rate in half. He gets it. He's there. He wasn't there his first year, and it was tough to watch because he had so much hype coming in. But he's there now. Is Miami on the schedule? Nope. I mean, when that number came out, the very first number that came out of Clemson for ACC was like plus 160. And I was like, all right, here, hit this, bet this, bet this. All right, put it in the app. I think that number is good all the way to like minus 130, minus 140. Clemson's not going to be an underdog in the ACC championship game. So I know you and I are going to go over who we think is going to be the top 4 seeds in the playoff, but I am very pro Clemson, and I don't even care what happens in the first game of the season. I would prefer a win, but it's just not going to kill them from making the playoff, and it doesn't hurt their chances of winning the ACC.
I mean, it could hurt. Like if they lose the ACC championship game, having that win could help. But ultimately, yeah, their goal, just like Miami, should be to win the ACC championship game, and that gets you into the college football playoff. But it also helps with a bye now, so you have to worry about those. That's why I like the seeding too. It makes those other games important too. But here's my thing with Klubnik. Yes, like he was very, very impressive against Texas, but like I'm still not. And one of the reasons I like Clemson last year was their offensive line coach hire, which I think made a big difference last year. And they were pretty unlucky with some injuries there. Yeah, they're top 3, I think, most experienced rosters in the country. They bring a ton back. There's a lot to like. I just think that they're overvalued. That's all. I mean, last year they only played 4 teams in the regular season that had a winning record. They're projected to play 8 this year. They could have went 0-4 in those games. I mean, they almost lost to Pitt with Pitt's backup quarterback. Klubnik against the SEC, 0-3, averaged 13 points per game. He had 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions against the SEC. All other games, 33 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I mean, who did they beat last year? Stanford was a disaster. App State's defense was a disaster. NC State, huge step back. Florida State, their worst season ever. Wake Forest, Virginia, Va Tech had a disastrous season. And then, they put 24 on Pitt. They beat Citadel. And they beat SMU. They were probably fortunate to beat SMU too. So, yeah, I mean, in the regular season, the teams they beat went 43-67. So I still have some questions there. I do like that. I obviously like the hire of Allen. I like all the experience. I just think they're a little oversold. When it comes to LSU, and why this is such a fascinating conversation between LSU and Clemson, is that LSU has Nussmeier back. They crushed it in the portal, probably the best portal class per some. The biggest question with LSU, I like their weapons. I like the trajectory of their defense. Nussmeier is not the most mobile guy, so the offensive line is going to matter. And what happened last year, and I like some of the things I saw from Nussmeier late in the year, some of the things that he fixed. The biggest question with LSU is their offensive line, right? You lose all of those pros, but here's where I think there's upside there. Sometimes with a coaching change, a scheme change, experience can be harmful because these guys are used to a certain way. LSU could not run the ball last year. Couldn't at all. And those offensive linemen, they were great in pass protection. Those offensive linemen just couldn't adjust to the run blocking change, the schematic change there, and they just couldn't figure it out. So there was no balance to the offense. So now you get a bunch of new guys in there. They obviously have talent, but there's a lot of question marks. But can they build now some continuity in that run blocking scheme and then actually have some balance to help out Nussmeier? Because you're not going to get the quarterback run game from Nussmeier. Why that's so fascinating is because one of the strengths of Clemson with all of their studs up front is their defensive line, right? Clemson's run D was bad, though, last year. They had a lot of holes. They were giving a ton of big runs. LSU couldn't run the ball. Okay, this year, you bring in Tom Allen, who's known to have really good run defenses, emphasis on that. LSU, new offensive line, can they have the balance? They're going to get a really, really good test on the road against that Clemson defensive line, and we're going to figure out a lot about both teams right off the bat. So I'm really fascinated to watch that. We'll learn a lot about LSU, and do they have that balance? Because if you can go in that game one and you can run it a bit against that Clemson front, then I think there's going to be balance, and that I think that's going to open up everything for Nussmeier and make things easier. So,
can I throw some shade on LSU?
Yeah. So tell me about your LSU hate.
I mean, come on. First off, did we do anything to improve the secondary? I mean, this has really been the problem with LSU for years. They finished 88th in contested catch rate. They gave up way too many explosives, and they were outside the top 50 in almost every single defensive metric. They were 124th in run explosives allowed. But what's Blake Baker done in the offseason?
You hate Blake Baker.
He was terrible. The numbers weren't good at Missouri, and then they hired him. They thought everything was going to be fixed, and it wasn't fixed. They have the 6th toughest schedule in the nation. And oh, by the way, 4 out of 5 SEC games, there's a stretch. Well, 4 out of 5 SEC games, teams are coming off of a bye week. They're going to be completely fresh. South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Alabama, and Arkansas. I'm not saying I am not getting into Arkansas talk right now, but I'm not saying those teams are going to win off a bye. But when half your SEC schedule comes in a 5-game span and all 4 of those teams are fresh, that takes a toll on you towards the end of the season. And I just have not been impressed with Blake Baker whatsoever. And you just didn't do anything in the portal to address things in the secondary enough. I mean, I know you got some players, but
I like the guys they brought in the secondary. That's one of the reasons I like them. Now, people can disagree. I mean, some of them have underperformed, but I like their ads in the secondary. I don't think that the guys that they lost are big losses. Their linebackers are obviously going to be really good. The defensive line loses all 4 starters, which is a question, but they hit the portal hard there. I like it comes down to how their defense is going to come down to. I like Baker. You don't. I like Baker. I like what they did on the defense in the portal. It's going to be really interesting to see how they use Perkins and how he fits. Like, can he play that hybrid role and stay on the field? And because you kind of need him. They're one of their biggest problems this year. They couldn't defend mobile quarterbacks.
Right.
And you're going to play Clemson. You're going to play Florida. You're going to play South Carolina. You're going to play Vandy. You're going to play Texas A&M.
You're going to get Talon.
Arkansas, Oklahoma. So I think they need Perkins on the field for that. And they play as many good mobile quarterbacks as you can. It's going to come down to the offensive line. It's going to come down to the defensive transfers. I like the upside. And a lot of it just in the SEC, it's quarterbacks. Like, who are the quarterbacks that you really trust in the SEC to win the league? I'm talking upside for LSU. It's not Missouri. Pabula we haven't seen as a starter. Maybe who knows if it's Horn. Vandy, their ceiling is limited, right? They're not going to win the SEC. Kentucky and Calzada, no. Mississippi State and Chapin, no. Auburn and Jackson Arnold, I like the fit. We got to see some more from Arnold, although I'm high on Arnold. Arkansas, Taylor Green, and with that roster, they win in the SEC? No. Come on. Let's be serious. Tennessee, no, not this year. Ole Miss, we haven't seen anything there. Florida, Lagway, yes. He's a guy that can elevate this team. Can they get over that schedule? Is he healthy? There are some health questions there with Lagway. Texas A&M, Reed, the starter now, everyone knows what's coming. Lost some key weapons, and he needs to get more consistent as a passer. I still have some questions there. Mateer, a lot of other people like him more than me. This is a big step up in class. I need to see it against high-quality competition for a full season. Alabama, haven't seen anything from their quarterbacks. Texas, still haven't seen it from Arch. Georgia, Stockton. Who are you left with? From a quarterback perspective, the most trustworthy answer is Nussmeier, in my opinion. And then I like Baker. I like what they did in the portal. We'll see if Brian Kelly can. I'm still trying to figure out, do I want to bet on LSU before or after Clemson?
You want to
to
see
make
how they
the
defend
playoff.
Bryant Wesco and Antonio Williams. You want to see how they defend those two.
Yeah, but if they pull that upset, then I'm like that's going to be
well,
enormous. So I'm just trying to figure out because I still want to see how. There's still a lot of information to be gained. There's injuries that could come. The other thing is Brian Kelly never ever wins week 1, never. So we'll see. We'll be debating that much more. But let's get into, speaking of Brian Kelly and Dabo, let's get into some coaching coordinator changes. I think that this is a trend that you're going to start to see throughout college football. If you look at the head coaching changes, and then we'll get to coordinators next, there was only, 6 at the Power 4 level? You had North Carolina. They were pretty big splashes, got homecomings. You had North Carolina with Belichick, UCF with Frost, West Virginia getting Rich Rod back in Morgantown. And then you had Wake, Stanford, and Purdue, like just teams that are irrelevant. Not a lot of head coaching changes. I think there was like 30 overall, right. Only 6 at the Power 4 level. So you're talking, 80% were from the Group of 5. And I think I think that's going to be a trend. And then when you look at coordinators, you had, I think, 30 new offensive coordinators and 30 new defensive coordinators at the Power 4 level. And then I think like close to 35 each at the Group of 5 level. I think it's going to be a trend because the money, right? Like the money to buy out some of these coaches. In the past, you might ante up. Hey, let's look at this. Look at Norvell last year, right? In the past, Florida State, I don't care. Get this, got 2-10 at Florida State. Get him out of here. We can't go 2-10. Now it's like, well, we got to put the money into the players, right? How are we coming up with all this other money? Same thing in Kentucky, like the buyout for Stoops after last year. So like, it's like Pittman, he stayed. Like the money that you have to put it into the program and the players now, and so teams are a little more hesitant to make changes there. And then the coordinator has those. That's a way that kind of you can change things schematically, make an impact. And then you have these coaches who are on the hot seat, maybe get an extra year or two with the way things work. And then that's your last ditch effort. Get a new offensive coordinator here, get a new defensive coordinator here. Please save me. So I think that's going to be a trend, is that you won't maybe not see as many head coaches fired as quickly as they might have been in the past. And then you're going to continue to see a ton of coordinator movement. And then you're going to see a lot of coordinators continue to migrate from the Group of 5 level up to the Power 4. So new head coaches, ones that intrigue you, ones that you don't like. What do you got here?
I don't like Dowell Loggins going to App State.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the Mountaineers are just, we didn't want him at Arkansas. I think South Carolina figured that out pretty fast as offensive coordinator. I mean, that success rate's about to go down the shitter, and it's going to be up to your players to create explosive plays. Southern Miss getting Charles Huff from a broken Marshall administration was monstrous. I'll talk about that a little bit later.
That's a crazy situation. There's like a couple teams that are like this, where it's just like, this team is now this team. And like Southern Miss is now, Marshall has now become Southern Miss. And like they just took the team and the coaches and they moved it down to Hattiesburg in the same conference. You don't really see that often. So that's going to be fun to watch.
I think Charlotte getting Tim Albin. What are you doing with this win total at 2.5? You're really kind of tempting me here. Florida Atlantic has fallen into a trend that I'm starting to love, which is get a head coach, get your quarterback. Zach Kitley is going to be there with Caden Veltkamp from Western Kentucky. I think Jacksonville State is way down. Charles Kelly is a head coach. They did that for a geographical recruiting fit, not really to win day one. I'll talk about Phil Longo at Sam Houston later. I absolutely do not see a single shred of defense being played for the Bearcats. You're right about Wake Forest. Jake Dicker taking that job, I think that was simply his agent trying to get him out of there. He had no ties to the area. He's not a fit whatsoever. But to me, Stuck, from a coordinator perspective, I have a group of loves and a group of hates, and I think the team is going to react positively or negatively based on this. Penn State getting Jim Knowles is paramount. I don't even think we can talk. The reason Ohio State won the national championship is not because of Ryan Day. And it's not, it is a $20 million roster. I get it, but the players were there all season. The reason that Ohio State won that national championship is because Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles both went to the drawing board. Chip Kelly said, I'm throwing on first down. And Jim Knowles said, I'm putting Caleb Downs in a rover position to roam all over the place instead of a single high safety. Both of them paid off. The betting markets couldn't keep up with Ohio State. When you get coordinators at that level that can scrap the chalkboard after 12 games and win a national title, that's where you really have to pay attention to coordinators. So I love Penn State getting defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. We've already talked about Clemson getting Tom Allen. Ryan Grubb coming to Alabama. I think, him and DeBoer have proven what they've done every single stop they've been together. Wisconsin getting Jeff Grimes is a huge, we're trying to get back to our roots at Wisconsin. You got the right offensive coordinator. Texas Tech throwing all this money around at everybody, but getting defensive coordinator Sheil Wood, a guy that I said 2 years ago is going to be a head coach someday and be one of the best. He's rising up the ranks, and now Texas Tech went and threw money and got him. Ryan Walters, the Purdue administration loved him. Illinois hated seeing him go. He is a great defensive coordinator. That is a bonus for Washington. Oklahoma falls into that same category with Mateer. They got offensive coordinator Ben Arbuckle. Venables is going to be hands-off with the offense. And Utah following in the same place with Jason Beck and Devin Dampier coming in. Devin Dampier is animal. I'll talk about him later. And then there's 4 of them that I hate.
Western Kentucky, too. Zappy Hour Part 2 with Bowie and MacGyver coming from Abilene Christian. They're trying to just recreate the Zappy Hour.
I think MacGyver is the best quarterback in the conference, day one. So there's 4 coordinators I hate, and I think you're going to see me negative on these teams.
All right, well, let me go positive first, then okay. I'll let you go negative. So head coaches I'll start with. I don't think I'm not a fan of the Mullen hire at UNLV. We'll see if he can adjust to this new landscape. But I also, in regards to UNLV, I don't like their coordinators either. So Fresno State, I like the hire with Entz. They also got a good DC from Northern Illinois. Yeah. But I think that should be the identity of Fresno State. It's just who Fresno State is. That's what they have to lead into. I think Entz was a good fit there. Utah State and Mendenhall, he's a good coach. That's a good get there. I agree with you on Longo. Yeah, the defense is a whole other story. I don't think that his system could fit there. And then with Longo leaving Wisconsin, I agree with you. Grimes coming from Kansas, I think is a much better fit at Wisconsin, going back to what they want to do, more running the ball. That's their identity. Remember, it's Wisconsin. Look where you play and look what the weather is sometimes. That Longo thing was never going to work. Just recruit your offensive line, run the ball, get a good creative coordinator. I think that works there. I also think that Grimes leaving Kansas is going to work out for Kansas. They're going to get back. Internal hire, but they're going to get back to a lot of the things that Kotelnicki did, which I think is a better fit for Daniels. We'll see if Daniels is healthy. So I think that works for both teams, just like with Allen leaving and then Knowles coming to Penn State. I think that works for both Clemson and Penn State. And I agree. It was huge. Knowles last year, he also simplified things more than he normally did. And then, some of the things that he did down the stretch, sometimes it's not overcomplicating things. And I will give Ryan Day credit in that he did become less of this is what the head coach is supposed to be. You get good coordinators, and on a team where you have good coordinators, good players, let them do their thing. And before, I think he would get too hands-on, want to be too involved and have too much to say. And he kind of became more of that CEO and hands-off and trusting, which is an important trait of a head coach. So I think he does deserve credit in that aspect.
Hold on. He did have his mentor there. He did have Chip Kelly there, his New Hampshire coach. So what is that like now that Chip Kelly's not there? Are we?
Yes. No, that it could be. You could question it again, but I'm saying he deserves credit for it last year. We'll get to the Ohio State negative.
Yeah. Yes, they're on my list.
Rice. I like the Rice hire because
who? You like who?
Rice. Oh yeah, I shouldn't talk positive about Rice. I just think that these teams who are falling behind, that you got to get gimmicky.
Yeah.
And you got to be hard to prepare for, have a unique scheme. So Rice is going to be a quasi triple option team. There's that conference is all about, maybe you don't have as much of an edge because this conference is growing now in option teams you have to prepare for. But I like that trend. That's what I would do if I'm on a group G5 program. It's not going to compete on talent. Don't have the ton of resources. A stadium where 30 people go to. Get unique.
We said this about Kansas 3 years ago before they got Lance Leipold, right? We said, go get Monken and run the triple option in Big 12. It'll screw everybody up. Now you're seeing this happen at the G5 level.
Yep. Yeah, head coaches. Yeah, and I just don't think the Longo thing, and I agree with you on App State and Loggins. I can't see the Longo thing working on the offensive side at Sam Houston State. I just don't think that they have, especially this year, the team to do that.